Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Cindie Chavez here. Today is Tuesday, August the 14th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Your first daily dose of happy for the day. And I have to honestly say I was looking forward to my daily dose of happy this morning, Cindie. I can't say I was in the best of moods when I woke up, but I've been working on doing my daily routine, and part of my daily routine is getting to do this show with you. So this is what picks me up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that kind of genius to add something that picks you up into your daily routine? I think that's so important.
Oh, it is. No doubt about it. And especially early in the day, because what you do early in the day kind of sets up the rest of the day, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because Tuesdays are generally a difficult day for me in terms of the amount of work I have to do and responsibilities that are involved and so forth. And quite honestly, some of the things that I end up having to do on Tuesdays are things I really don't enjoy doing a whole lot. I keep trying to find the positive aspects of them, but the bottom line is I just don't really enjoy them a whole lot. So having that pick me up to get the day going, boy, does that change things tremendously. Because now I'm set up. Once we're done with the show here, for instance, I'll be in a place where I can actually handle that stuff and maybe even maintain my vibration throughout the day. Boy, does that make a difference.
Well, I like the way you mentioned not just that it's part of the routine, but that it's early in the day. I mean, that's so true, because that may sound like a no-brainer, but I noticed that a lot of us will put anything that helps us feel better. I mean, I don't think we're conscious about this. Like, oh, no, I can't do that now. That would feel good. It's not like that, but but it's like what I heard once called the tyranny of the urgent.
Yes.
It's like, oh, well, I'd love to do that, but I need to do X, Y, Z. Like, I have all these urgent tasks that are like chasing me down. Like, I can't just go play. I have, housework or laundry or accounting or, whatever kind of work it is that we've got on our list. And so building it into the routine where it becomes a habit, it becomes a part of the day that you do every day early. It's really smart, because you were making a mention about wanting to work on a project and wanting to feel good, because obviously anything creative we do, well, really anything we do, we want to be in a place where we're in a good feeling place, right? But
right.
It's like all those times I was thinking, sometimes when we're not feeling good is the time that we start feeling like, oh, I need to do something about this.
Oh, all the time. Are you kidding?
I mean, this is not good. So I need to do something. Even when it's like, I told the story about a friend of mine that had a problem with an employee and was really upset that it just was not working out. And then she had to fire him. And then she was just like, oh, so she got online to like find a replacement, someone that could do the same job, and then caught herself and thought, oh my goodness, like, what kind of a job will this next person do if when I find them, I'm all frustrated? It's like,
good catch.
We want to yeah, that's what I said. I was like, oh, because thinking about it, that's often the time we need to fix something. We're frustrated about it. We need to fix it now. And we start looking for a solution, and we're looking for a solution coming from that frustrated place.
Well, that's just it. And that's the default behavior that I'm trying to change, because that is the default behavior. That's the one that we're all kind of, I don't know how it's not like we take a course in, okay, if you're not getting things that you want, then you have to just take action. It's not like we get that, but somehow we incorporate it into our beings, and we all do it. But it becomes very important to change it, so that is no longer the default behavior, so that the new default behavior is, like Abraham teaches, to get into that good feeling place and then take whatever the action is, just so you don't take the same repeated action that led up to it over and over and over again, just so long you don't take that with you, so it doesn't keep happening again and again and again. And
if you see yourself in this description, I know we both are, obviously.
Oh yeah, clearly.
Don't beat yourself up about it. Our species has survived. Humans have survived because we have survival instincts, and those aren't necessarily happiness instincts.
No.
They're fight, flight, or freeze, right? And so those are the instincts that have gotten us to be able to survive, and those instincts still hang on, and they don't necessarily always correlate with having a high vibration.
No, they don't. But fortunately, we're also deliberate creators, especially those of us who have been fortunate enough to be exposed to the teachings of Abraham, and not only been fortunate enough, but actually paid attention and listened and said, this is a good idea. And in the process of doing that, we've learned that we can change it. We can change the pattern, and we can do it to our own benefit. What a great benefit that is.
The key words there we always need to remember are deliberate and conscious. I mean, that's how we're changing these habits of ours. That's how we're building routines into our day that support our good vibration, our high vibration. We're doing it deliberately and consciously, because it doesn't happen by accident. If we leave it, that old saying about if you let the garden decide what it wants to grow, it will grow weeds.
Believe it or not, I did not know that one, which is strange considering my wife runs a gardening business. But no, well, see, now there's another example about why I'm not supposed to be in the garden, because I'm not a gardener. My wife is the gardener. Her crew, they're the gardeners. It's like I tell our new prospects when they call in on the phone, I say, jokingly, of course, I say to them, you really don't want me anywhere near my garden, near your garden. I was born with a black thumb. I mean, if I go into your garden, I'll just kill it. You want my wife. So let me send her crew in, and they'll do a great job for you. Just keep me away from it.
See that story that you're telling?
Well, it's true. Well, it's a great way to stay out of the garden. It's very effective.
I understand. As soon as you learn all that stuff, they'll put you to work.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't want to do that. Yeah.
I detest yard work. Are you kidding?
I don't like yard work either. I don't, especially here in the million-degree
heat. Oh,
heat.
geez, yes. Ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad enough up here in Connecticut. Down there in Bayou territory must be. Oh God, I can't.
I used to joke that when the spring here is just so lovely. I guess it is everywhere, but after a winter of any kind, we don't have a brutal winter like you do, of course, but right. I don't like cold weather at all. So our winter is still a winter for me. And it's like after that winter and it starts to become spring and it's a little warmer outside and everyone's tired of being cooped up in the house and we want to get outside. And I would always plant something. I would start like a little herb garden or a flower bed or something. And, our spring lasts about 2.5 weeks. And as soon as spring was gone and it was 105, I'd be like, I just abandon it. It's like, I just can't be out there working in it. I'm melting out here.
I understand completely. Yeah. You almost have to wake up at like 5 a.m. to do your gardening or something.
Right. Seriously. You do see a lot of people out, when it starts cooling off, but it's all good though. The plants that need that are thriving here. So.
But the point, of course, is that we do get to take control. And that's really what it's all about. We get to take control not only of our experience, but of our emotional experience, which I'm still celebrating that. Because, literally, that's a relatively new thought for me in my lifetime. The first 40, 45 years of my life, I didn't think that was possible. The idea didn't even occur to me. Control your own emotions in terms of deciding what you're going to feel at any given time. The only way I knew to control my emotions were either to turn them on or shut them off. That was it. It was an on-off switch, But actually say, I'm not feeling so good right now, so I'm going to feel better. Yeah, right. That wasn't going to happen. Boy, when I found that it could happen, that changed a lot.
It's an empowering realization. I told you the story before about I was teaching a class of, I don't know, they were little kids, maybe 8-year-olds, I guess, second graders. Mm-hmm. And we were playing this game, this learning game, like a board game type of thing. And it had little pieces and apparently one of the girls picked up one of the pieces that one of the boys had, decided was his piece. And he got really upset and he said something really mean. And I said, okay, no, we're not going to talk to each other that way. And he said, well, she makes me so mad.
Yes.
and I said, oh, no, she doesn't make you mad. You make yourself, you get to decide how you respond to her. She didn't make you mad. That was your choice to get mad. The whole class got really quiet and they all just stared at me and his mouth just fell open. And it was like this big revelation, it's like, what did you say? And I thought it was so funny because after that we had a nice peaceful class and we didn't, everybody decided they would react and respond in a different way. But just the idea that we have control It gives us our power back.
It also reflects just how thoroughly this information about not having control comes from our socialization, from our society education. Because if you had said the same thing to an adult or a group of adults, you quite possibly would have gotten a lot of pushback about it. But with the kids, since they hadn't been socialized very long, it was easy for them to fall back into their original mode, the mode they were born with, of, yes, I have control over my own emotions. And that, to me, is the big evidence. It's the evidence that this is learned. This is not something that we're born with.
Well, it's everywhere. You know, I've said this before, I don't really watch TV. I watch movies, but
Which
I
is
don't watch
often
a
as
lot
bad, but still, it's an improvement.
But I don't watch a lot of TV, so I don't see a lot of just the stuff that's on all the time. And I don't watch like sports TV, but when my sons were home, they were both athletes, so they would be watching ESPN and, you know, the sports channels a lot. And I would notice the commentators, every play they would be talking about, who's to blame. It was always who's to blame. Whose fault is this, right?
Oh, God, yes.
It hit me one day, and I started, I guess it was just reticular activation and a sense of like wonder about it. Like, oh my goodness, like I felt like every single thing I heard on TV was someone blaming someone else for something. And if they couldn't blame, they were figuring out who to blame so that they could do it as soon as possible, right?
And you're right, too, especially in sports. Sports, it's always who's to blame. They don't necessarily use the word blame, but they're always trying to find who the scapegoat is going to be, who's the person that we're going to be holding responsible for this travesty of a loss that was experienced by this great team, or, you know, whatever it is. It's an ongoing theme, you know. Well, plus it's the theme that we here in Connecticut are used to, because I live like a half an hour away from the ESPN studios. So I mean, you actually can see, you know, like the sports personalities around, if you hang around town there long enough, and the consciousness of it just permeates all of the society around here as well, especially since we're like halfway between New York and Boston. So you have the Boston fans and you have the New York fans, and ne'er the twain shall meet because the rivalry is so big in any sport between the two cities. So you combine all that together, and the finger pointing can get pretty intense, to say the least. Well, see,
and you just used a phrase that's exactly the issue here. And you said the consciousness of it all permeates everything.
It does.
Right? And that's like these little kids, you know, like you were saying, this kind of behavior is learned. And so it's not that we specifically ever have a teacher sit us down and say, you need to make sure that anything, you know, you experience, you can point the finger at someone else. It's not true. Like that, but it's that energy of blame. It's the consciousness of it that permeates everything. And we pick it up just by, you know, hey, the sports commentator in the background, who's to blame for this, right? We pick that up, and then we start living like that without thinking about it. And what that really is, boil it down to its basest level, it's just victimhood.
Yes.
And so when we're in that place, and we've all been in that place, when we're in that place, it's hard to see our way out, and we are not generating the kind of vibrations that will bring us enjoyment and happiness and abundance and our highest good. And so, and so it's a great thing to recognize, is that I'm not a victim, and I get to deliberately and consciously choose. It doesn't mean we won't have experiences in life where someone victimizes us, or abuses us, but we get to choose our response.
Yeah, it's really important. That's like, if it's one of the hardest concepts early on when we're still learning how the law of attraction works, because that default behavior is still there, right? So, you know, when things don't go right, they really don't go right, because we're conscious of, you know, okay, what I focus on. So I focus on the thing that I want, but I'm really focusing on the lack of it because I don't recognize how much I'm in control of my own stuff. And now all of a sudden I'm becoming a even bigger victim than I was before I knew about the law of attraction.
It can seem complex at first because it goes contrary to whatever we've probably been living prior, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I can't remember who it was. It was somebody in one of the Facebook groups was commenting that their life got worse since they discovered the law of attraction.
Well, the important piece is that, like, what we've been talking about this morning is that the consciousness of blame.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to blame ourselves either. Like,
No.
that's one of the things I've actually heard someone say to me when I've talked about what I call radical responsibility, which is being responsible for every single thing that happens in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard people, like, in relationship issues say, it's not his behavior, bad behavior towards me. That's not my fault. And I'm not saying that you're to blame, and I'm not saying that you're at fault. I'm saying you have the opportunity to take responsibility for how you react and respond to that behavior.
Yeah.
That's a totally different thing.
It's a different feeling. It's a different experience. It is a different way of living, really.
It is. And it's the way of living that everything begins to be conscious and deliberate. And when you're in that place, it's a real place of power. And that's when you can start choosing, just like you said this morning. It's like, okay, I'm so glad I'm doing the podcast.
Oh boy, yes.
Didn't wake up in the best space today, but this podcast is something in my routine that I already know that when I get finished with it, I'll be in a different place.
And long before I get finished with it. I mean, we're 15 minutes into it, 16 minutes into it. I've already got a smile on my face. So
yeah,
I've achieved the goal already. Now I get another 45 minutes to really enjoy it.
That's pretty quick alignment.
It is. It's good though. I like it. That's what happens when you do 500 podcasts. Eventually, they catch up.
Right? Oh, so before we dive in though, I want to make sure, speaking of the podcast, that we talk about a couple of things, because we've been trying to mention for the past few weeks that we would love to have you call in.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And talk to us and say hello, ask questions, maybe get some coaching, call in, let us know what's going on with you in your law of attraction experience.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
so
the instructions on how to do that, it's right there on the homepage of the website at loatoday.net. One of the options that you can choose there, and I can just give that to you here on the podcast, is just to call in, particularly if you're in the United States. There's also numbers you can call if you live internationally in other countries, and you have to click on the link there in order to find them, because there's a bunch of them. But for callers within the United States, the phone number is 646-876-9923. And then once you call in, there's an access code. And that access code, it's a little bit long. It's like a phone number. It's 860-264-5432. So again, the call-in number, for those of you who are now scrambling for your pencils and pads, that call-in number is 646-876-9923 with the access code 860-264-5432.
We would love it.
Yeah, we'd love a call. It'd be great. Also, since we're taking a moment to announce things, we're trying to encourage our existing subscribers, the people who have been with us for quite some time now and who really love the podcast, which we know because they keep downloading the shows, so they must love it. Otherwise, they're masochists par excellence, one or the other. But hopefully it's because they actually like it. And if you like it, we're hoping that you'll just take a moment and go to your favorite social media channel and just post something, anything. Preferably something nice, something that says I like it, but post something that includes the phrase loatoday.net, because we're trying to do an experiment to see what happens when we do that. We have been, Cindie, since you and I started this last Tuesday, I think it was, we have been seeing a spike in plays. It has actually increased.
Cool.
The number of unique listeners has increased a little bit. It's not been gigantic. I think we've added, something like 20 or 30 over the norm in terms of what our normal growth rate is. But still, 20 or 30 is good, And if those people become permanent subscribers, then that's even better, because that's it's a permanent ad. It's not just a temporary thing. Which brings me to the third point, which is if you're not yet a subscriber, become a subscriber, because it's free. It takes about a minute to do, and you get all these wonderful episodes coming right to your phone to play whenever you want to play them. Again, all the instructions are right on the homepage. It's pretty darn easy. And if you're not the kind of person who likes to use a web browser, or maybe you've forgotten how to do it because you're so used to using social media, you just don't do it anymore. But if you're in that category, it's pretty easy. If you have an iPhone, just go to the iTunes store and do a search for us there. Or just go through the podcast software that's built into the iPhone and just do a search on LOA Today. If you're on an Android phone, you have one more step you have to do beyond what an iPhone user has to do, because you probably do not have podcast software built into your phone. Fortunately, it's pretty easy to get, and there are a lot of free ones out there. There are some that you pay for too, but you can get free ones. And the place to do that, of course, like with anything else, is through the Play Store. So just go to the Play Store, get the podcast software, install it, and then from within the software, do the search for LOA Today. And either way, you can subscribe. So please become a subscriber if you have not already done so.
Yay! You know what I love about this little segment?
What's that?
I recognize that it's like a little commercial. It's a promo, but we're asking for what we want.
That's true. That's very true. And boy, do we want it. I mean, I do. I know I do. I really, really want it. So yes. And I think you do too, especially the calls. We'd love to have a call.
Yeah. And so it just hit me though. I was like, this is a good lesson in itself. That lesson of ask for what you want. Let people know. Let the universe know whatever you're looking for. If you're looking for a job, you're looking for a relationship, you're looking for, I do some relationship coaching, and it's one of the questions that I usually ask people is how many people in your life, whether they're close to you or whether they're, coworkers, friends, neighbors, family, how many of those people in your circle, how many of them know you're looking for a relationship? And I'm not anymore, but it used to be so shocked at how many people would tell me, well, I don't think really anybody knows.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the same thing with you're looking for work, you're looking for a job, you're looking for an opportunity, you're looking for whatever you're looking for.
And interestingly enough, these same people who don't know what it is that you're looking for know perfectly well about the thing you don't like. Because that's what you've been telling about all this time, right? You don't like this, you don't like the job, you don't like the way the boss is treating you, you don't like your relationship, you don't like your money situation, you don't like where you're going for vacation. Well, that's got to change at some point.
That's the starting block. You got to get off the starting block.
That's right.
And the starting block is where you push off. So knowing all those things that you don't want, everything that you're complaining about. And I'm not pointing a finger. I'm raising my hand. I complain about things too. And I catch myself and I realize, okay, if there's that saying about if you worry, that worrying is like praying for what you don't want. Right. I think complaining is like asking for what you don't want.
Yeah.
Because the more we complain about something, the more it starts to show up. So let that be our starting place of, okay, what is it I do want? That's the pivot. We learned about the pivot in the beginning of this book. We've been working our way through Money and the Law of Attraction, Learning to Attract Wealth, Health, and Happiness by Esther and Jerry Hicks, The Teachings of Abraham. It's a #1 New York Times bestseller. And we've been enjoying it a lot. And that pivot was one of the very first things we learned in this book.
Yeah.
It was kind of drilled into us in this book. I felt like anyway. It's like it was just like hammered over and over that you have to be able to ask that question, what do you want? What do I want?
I prefer gently reminded, but yeah, you could describe it as hammering because we got it a lot, that's for sure.
I say it because of the repetition. Okay, we were repetitively gently reminded.
That's right.
Like a gentle rain that falls all day long. It doesn't stop.
So if you want the sun to come out.
But I knew about pivoting. It's one of the first things any of us learns when we start researching about the law of attraction.
True, yeah.
For some reason, it really was brought home to me in this book. And I'm sure that I've done, I'm making little air quotes, the pivot. I'm sure I've done that for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. But the experience that I had at the beginning of this year, with pivoting from a physical ailment that was trying to happen, a head cold that kept trying to come, and I kept just doing this pivot thing. And it took a while. But it never developed. And it just made an impression on me. Mm. And so now I'm like, oh, I catch myself in all kinds of situations where I'm starting to catch myself complaining or just telling a story of, the air quotes, right? What is?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it is.
Yes.
You know, telling
Well,
that
those
story.
of us who are old enough used to have Walter Cronkite telling us that every night. And that's the way it is.
And that's the way it is. That's right. Who's Walter Cronkite? No, I'm kidding. I I am old enough to remember.
For those who don't remember Walter Cronkite, just Google him. You'll find out. He was like the greatest newscaster of all time. He was fabulous. But
I'm sure that if I can't name the particular movies, but I'm sure that even if you aren't old enough to remember Walter Cronkite, you've probably seen one movie or another where he was on the TV, right? Because he was just an icon. So
he really was.
Well, speaking of pivoting, I looked down and saw at the bottom of the page, I'm in the paperback. Walt is on the digital version of the book. But in the paperback version, we're at the bottom of page 190. And we've been talking about careers and jobs and work. And this little topic here says, what are its positive aspects? So here we are,
which is
right
perfectly,
off the bat.
tied right into pivoting, because in order to pivot, you got to know what you're pivoting to. That's what you have to know the positive aspects so you know what to pivot to. And that is a big thing. Especially when you're in a difficult place. It's hard sometimes to even know what the positive aspects are. So this is an important topic.
Well, you were saying a minute ago about not even knowing what we want. Like we know what we don't want. And what's interesting is the positive aspect is often the pivot point, because, for instance, if you're complaining about your job, because we are talking about career and work, and you can name all those things that you really hate about it, right? And someone says, okay, well, let's find the positive aspect. And, you may say, oh, the only thing I like about this job is that, and then there'll be a positive aspect, right? It's close to home. Or maybe I like that I have the weekends off.
Right.
I like that, that I work with a small group of people and not a giant group. I mean, there's some positive aspect. And you may say, this is the only thing I like about it. But that's the place where you go, okay, that's where you start your list of what you want.
Right. Yes.
I do want to stay in a job that's close to home, or I do want, whatever. And so it kind of is the entry point to the pivot, I think.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Not only the entry point, it's the thing that gets the momentum going in the other direction when you stay on it.
Yeah, it's the U-turn.
It's the U-turn, exactly.
U-turn. What is that? What is that GPS term that we always joke about? Make a legal U-turn.
A legal U-turn, right.
At the next opportunity, make a legal U-turn. So the question, what are its positive aspects? Abraham says, whenever you feel negative emotion, that is your emotional guidance system giving you an indication that you are, in that moment, looking at negative aspects of something. And in doing so, you're depriving yourself of something wanted. If you will set an intention to look for positive aspects in whatever you are giving your attention to, you will begin to immediately see the evidence of the lifting of patterns of resistance as the universe is then allowed by your shift in vibration to deliver your long-wanted desires to you. People often move from job to job, profession to profession, employer to employer, only to find the next place no better than the last. And the reason for that is they take themselves everywhere they go. When you go to a new place and you continue to complain about what was wrong with your last position in order to explain why you came to the new position, the same vibrational mix of resistance goes with you and continues to prevent the things you want from coming to you. That's an interesting point right there, is that instead of saying continue to bring things to you that you don't want, it says that vibrational mix of resistance goes with you and continues to prevent the things you want from coming to you.
Yeah.
All those things you want, they're already lined up.
Yeah, that's a good point, that we tend to think about it in what I might call a non-productive way, because we confuse how the thing works. But when you express it in terms of resisting something rather than it didn't show up, now we begin to realize that there is a personal responsibility thing going on here, which, by the way, going back to what we talked about previously, has nothing to do with blame.
No, it's just responsibility.
Right.
And the recognition here that it's not just that things you don't want are still coming your way. It's that all those things you do want are right there, but they're being prevented from coming to you.
Which
they
is a
don't
weird concept.
come because we're throwing up a big wall of resistance, and the wall is created by a vibrational mix that happens because we're complaining about the past experience.
And one of the strangest things about that wall of resistance, as you term it, is very often we don't even know it's there. I mean, I know in my case, I'm often asking, one of my requests to the universe is, please show me where this resistance is, because I don't know what I've got. I don't know what to let go of. I can tell from the results that there's some resistance I put up there. Abraham has taught me that, but I still don't know where that resistance is. How am I resisting? I just don't see it. So you got to show me, universe. Show me this resistance so I know what to let go of, because I don't know what to let go of.
And I think this next paragraph nails it. The best way to accomplish. And it says an improved work environment, but this is anything, right?
True. Mm-hmm.
The best way to accomplish an improved work environment is to focus upon the best things about where you currently are until you flood your own vibrational patterns of thought with appreciation. And in that changed vibration, you can then allow the new and improved conditions and circumstances to come into your experience.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. And that's what I'm going to make mental note of. For those occasions when I'm asking the universe, show me what the resistance level is, because I don't understand how I'm resisting. The reminder is get into that place of appreciation and I'll find it. And I'll actually let go of it. Or
release it. Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes we don't even have to identify it. As soon as we get into that rampage of appreciation kind of mode, as soon as we really start, and the word in that paragraph, the word appreciation is italicized.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's emphasized there that when we flood our own vibrational pattern of thought with appreciation, we change our vibration.
And the key there, I think, is flood.
Yeah.
Because if you just kind of appreciate a few things, you don't notice much of a change at that point. And you're right, there is not much of a change at that point. It's the flooding that does it. It's the overwhelming yourself with appreciation and good feeling thoughts. That's what does it.
Some worry that if they follow our encouragement to look for good things about where they are, it will only hold them longer in an unwanted place. But the opposite is really true. In your state of appreciation, you lift all self-imposed limitations, and all limitations are self-imposed. And you free yourself for the receiving of wonderful things.
That's an interesting thing. I mean, some worry that if they follow our encouragement to look for good things about where they are, it will only hold them longer in an unwanted place. I have to say, I don't quite understand that one. Do you understand that position?
I do. I understand it, and I think it's the same experience that I'm going to describe. But I have had someone before, but I was trying to say, just appreciate, let's just appreciate the things that are worth appreciating now, right now, in this moment. And they said, no, because I don't want more of that. I want that other thing. So I get it.
Oh, I see. So they're feeling like if they focus on the good things of this moment, they're never going to get the thing that they asked for. Right.
Because then it will hold them in that spot. It's like, I know that because they've got the beginning of law of attraction, right? I attract what I appreciate, whatever I focus on expands. And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to stay in this job. And if I start appreciating it, that will hold me here.
Yes. Okay. I see that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think I've been there too. I think we all have one way or another, because, well, I described earlier how Tuesdays are not my favorite day of the week. And I really don't want to necessarily have to appreciate the good parts about Tuesdays, because I don't have to deal with the parts that I don't like.
Yeah. And it's a nice reminder that that's not really what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. It will, but the opposite is really true. In your state of appreciation, you lift all self-imposed limitations.
Yeah.
And it says, and all limitations are self-imposed.
Yes, that's a good point right there. They put it in parentheses, but it's almost like they skipped past it. All limitations are self-imposed. Yeah. That one kind of got me for quite some time. Still gets to me. It's like, oh, geez, you
No,
mean I
it's not.
imposed all of them? Oh, no.
I'm not limiting myself. So-and-so is limiting me. It's their fault, right?
Oh, no, not for me. For me, it was, oh, God, if I'm the one imposing all this, I'm doomed.
But that's, the great aspect of knowing that all of the limitations we experience are limitations we're actually creating for ourselves is that we can uncreate them then.
Well, yeah, once we know how to do it.
Yeah, right,
yeah.
right.
Of course, you have to know how to do it. Otherwise, you feel like you're trapped. But once you know how to do it, yes, then it's actually quite empowering. That's true.
Yeah.
So the conversation goes on with Jerry saying, Abraham, what is the role of appreciation in the creation equation? Let me say that again. What is the role of appreciation in the creation equation? And how does a condition of appreciation equate to what's called the attitude of gratitude? From Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, I learned to decide what I wanted and then to focus on it or think about it until it came into being. In other words, I set goals and timetables for their achievement. But then after meeting you, I became aware that most of what I would describe as the most wonderful things that came into my life weren't so much things that I had specified that I wanted, although much of that came to pass also. What actually manifested was the essence of something that I have greatly appreciated. In other words, I knew Esther for years before we came together, and I never wanted her through those years, but I did greatly appreciate so many aspects of who she was. And then she, and all of her delightful aspects, came completely into my life, and look at what a magnificent difference she has made in the joyous aspects of my life. Now, also, I read the Seth books over and over and never desired to have a Seth in my life. But I greatly appreciated the teaching of that non-physical entity named Seth, as well as Jane Roberts and Robert Butts, who facilitated that experience. And now, here you are, not Seth per se, but you bring with you the essence of everything that I appreciated so much about Jane and Rob and Seth's phenomenal metaphysical experiences. Over 40 years ago, I was visiting a family near San Francisco who earned their money from a very basic, almost primitive, mail-order lapidary business. I'm going to have to look that one up, lapidary business, that they conducted from their home. I never, ever said that I wanted that business, but in my appreciation, I told thousands of people the story of that experience. And then one day, about 20 years ago, as I was at the post office picking up orders for some Teachings of Abraham recordings, I realized that I was now experiencing the essence of that mail order business that I had so much appreciated. And now, look at how many millions of people have been positively touched as a result of the business aspects of disseminating this philosophy. I could list many more, but I'll add one more scenario. Esther and I, when we first moved to San Antonio, Texas, found a small temporary rental house where we could enjoy a vegetable garden, laying hens, a milk goat, and our own water well. We used to take our walks by crossing the road in front of the house and then walking across a small airplane landing strip into a grove of large cedar and live oak trees. Even in the heat of the summer, we were able to enjoy our walks by following the deer trails that tunneled through the dense growth of trees. One day we discovered that one of the deer trails opened into a tiny meadow hidden among the oaks. It was so beautiful. The grass and flowers and general atmosphere would be best described as enchanting. Esther and I loved that good-feeling spot in the woods, and we returned there many times. We conjured scenarios of how this seemingly ancient, seemingly natural clearing could have come about and who might have discovered and enjoyed it before us. We questioned why it was so inexplicably pleasing to us, and we appreciated it greatly. We never said that we wanted that piece of land. We just purely appreciated it. And then, about 5 or 6 years later, a stranger called us and said he had heard that we were looking for land to build our office complex on. And the 7 acres that he offered us contained that small hidden meadow. And now our office sits exactly on that beautiful, enchanting spot. That 7 acres became part of 20, and then one day I was appreciating the beautiful oak trees on our neighbor's prime 20 acres. And to make a long, delightful story, relatively short. That little meadow has now evolved to 40 prime acres with Interstate 10 frontage, with a plane hangar, a helicopter pad, and a stable. We don't have a plane or horses. And it all evolved from our appreciation of that small meadow in the woods. Abraham, I don't know why I'm asking this. Abraham, would you please respond to my perspective regarding the emotion of appreciation? He just described it so well. Why does Abraham have to say anything? I don't get
it.
Right?
I'm thinking a couple of things. Well, first, way back at the beginning, the tongue twister question of what is the role of appreciation in the creation equation. I thought it was like going to bust out into like a Schoolhouse Rock kind of rhyme.
Okay.
But lapidary, it's so interesting that word was in here. Lapidary, that is, taking stones, minerals, creating art from them.
Okay.
Minerals, gemstones, into like the gemstones, like the cabochons you would use to make jewelry, and things like like tumbled stones that are smooth. And it's funny because we went to the mineral show this weekend, and so
that's my Sesame Street moment for the day. Lapidary. Right. Today's word is lapidary.
I told the story about that. Somebody asked me something about it. I said, well, they said they didn't know about rock tumbling to make them smooth. And I said, oh, I knew about it. I said, I wanted a rock tumbling machine for, Christmas or a birthday or something when I was very, very young,
really?
4 or 5. And it made so much noise and racket that my mother decided, no, she just couldn't handle it. And so my lapidary career was ended in a very short moment, but I've always been interested. Okay. So I've totally digressed from the topic, but I want to point something out in this beautiful description that you read. And I enjoyed listening to every word.
Oh,
amazing. It was written. You were right. It was written so well. It explained it all. Something stood out, and that's this. When they talked about, they conjured scenarios of how this seemingly ancient, seemingly natural clearing would have come about, and, who enjoyed this before us. I mean, they really appreciated it so much. And then it says, and then about 5 or 6 years later, and that stood out to me. They weren't struggling to have it happen. They just appreciated it. And it was 5 or 6 years later.
Yeah.
It wasn't instantly. Sometimes we need to enjoy the appreciation in the moment where we are. Right? As deliberate and conscious creators,
mm-hmm.
I feel sometimes we're like, I'm appreciating it. It's just not happening yet.
Which isn't really appreciation when you come down to it.
Yeah. I mean, when his description of their appreciation, to me anyway, seems so pure.
Oh, that was beautiful. That was prose. That was just gorgeous.
I loved it.
I was in the middle of it. I mean, I'm reading this out loud to everybody, and I felt like I was there. I felt like I was in that meadow. I felt like the airplane hangar was there. The airport and I-10 and the oak trees and all. I mean, I felt like it was all right there.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful, and I think that's the hallmark of appreciation.
Mm.
Right? Like, in other words, we're talking about feeling better and focusing on good feeling thoughts, and appreciation is where we end up, is how we get to those feelings. And even reading about their appreciation brought those feelings to us.
Mm-hmm. It did.
We weren't even there.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, as I was reading that section, I was kind of reminded to myself how much I appreciate doing the podcast, which is not quite the same thing. I mean, they're talking about something that they weren't really asking for, whereas not only did I ask for the podcast, I actually created it, and I wanted to do the podcast, so it's a much more direct kind of thing. But nevertheless, I was thinking about the appreciation aspect of it and recognizing that if I want to, and I do, if I want to increase the listenership, right now, our listenership is measured in the hundreds. I want it to be measured in the thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. If I want that, I got to talk about that more. I got to appreciate that more. I got to spend more time on that. It's not that I haven't spent any time on it. I have. Just it's been rather sparse now that I look back. I need to spend more time. I need to spend more appreciation. I need to just really talk about how thrilling it is to have so many people listening to the podcast, and how thrilling it will be to have even more people listening to the podcast in large numbers, and getting to the point where we're not just asking for an occasional phone call. We're getting phone calls every single time we do a podcast because there are so many listeners. I mean, you know how it is. Law of large numbers. The more listeners you have, the more likelihood somebody's going to call in. So you get that with a large number of listeners. You get up into the tens of thousands. People are going to call in. There's always going to be somebody calling in. Well, that would be great. I mean, that would be really great. I would like that a lot. I think you would too,
I would. Yes, definitely.
That would be so much fun. So I think I got to talk more here, maybe even on the podcast as well as off the podcast, about how much I appreciate the idea of having all of these listeners tuning in much larger numbers than we have now. Not that I don't appreciate what we have now, but just also telling the story about even larger numbers and more people calling in and more people subscribing to the podcast and more people sharing on the social media. I think it's got to be part of the regular story.
Well, I think it's funny that as you read this, very wonderful description of their appreciation. When you got to the last sentence, Abraham, would you please, you started laughing. You said, I don't even know why I'm asking this.
Yeah, right. Right? Well, it was so beautifully described. You were. Okay, yeah. So I wasn't totally off my rocker.
Like, what? No. But we'll give Abraham a chance.
Well, they do answer, so it's only fair,
Abraham says, the vibration of true love, that feeling of being in love, that feeling that you have sometimes when you see someone and you feel like you're moving through one another. The feeling that you have when you're looking at the innocence of a child and feeling the beauty and power of that child. Love and appreciation are identical vibrations.
That needs an underline. Love and appreciation are identical vibrations.
That is amazing. We've talked before about the idea of taking a few moments to think about what you want and to just enjoy it, really enjoy it just for the moment of enjoyment, right? Sort of like a daydream.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that taught me that used to say, close your eyes, fall in love, and stay there.
Ooh.
And that's exactly what Abraham's saying here.
Yeah.
Is that love and appreciation are identical vibrations. Appreciation really is the vibration of alignment with who you are. It is the absence of resistance. It is the absence of doubt and fear. It is the absence of self-denial or hatred towards others. Appreciation is the absence of everything that feels bad and the presence of everything that feels good. When you focus upon what you want, when you tell the story of how you want your life to be, you will come closer and closer to the vicinity of appreciation. And when you reach it, it will pull you toward all things that you consider to be good in a very powerful way.
There's another really good point there, one that I have not fully appreciated, to borrow a phrase, which is that just because I'm focusing on something positively doesn't mean I'm really truly in appreciation feeling. That often happens, when we're still trying to practice.
Right.
When we're still trying to, okay, I'm going to do my pivot now, and I'm going to, appreciate the positive things. And usually when we start, we're not in the most appreciative place. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. We should. It's just that we haven't really gotten to that appreciation place yet. And repeating that pattern will get us there. But that's a really important point. We're not actually in that appreciation yet. We're just moving toward it. And so
I like the idea of consciously and deliberately appreciating something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And practicing it. I think that's what my point is. It takes practice. And through the practice, not only do we grow the appreciation, we also grow the likelihood that we're going to get what we want to get out of it. But the two go hand in hand. When we start off with, okay, I've been dealing with this job I don't like, and I don't like the boss, and I don't like what I'm doing, and so forth. But my one thing that I appreciate is having the weekends off. Okay, so I appreciate having the weekends off. And you can just hear it in my voice, like, oh yeah, okay, so I gotta do this exercise about appreciating positive things. So I'll do the appreciation of the positive things. But the more I talk about how I like the weekends off, and maybe I even find another positive aspect. Maybe I like lunch hours, So, okay, well, I like lunch hours too. And then maybe I also like going home from work. Like, hey, I don't have to do any more work today. Hooray! So now I found another positive aspect. And the more that I talk about these things, the more the appreciation starts to grow from a little tiny seed until it starts getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. Am I in full appreciation yet? No. But that doesn't matter. I'm getting there. I'm getting there by focusing on the positive aspects.
I feel like when we decide to consciously appreciate something, it's sort of like the difference between like wolfing down a piece of cake and really savoring it.
Mm.
Like it's the same piece of cake. We might say it was delicious, right? But when we take a deep breath and stop ourselves from wolfing down the slice of cake and say, oh no, I'm going to really savor this. I'm going to not read a book and talk to someone while I'm wolfing this down. I'm going to really taste it. I'm going to really enjoy it and just spend a moment appreciating it. And to me, that's the difference of, saying, yeah, these are the positive aspects. I'm happy about this and this, or saying I'm going to take a moment to really appreciate those things and kind of let it sink in. It, to me, comes a little closer to that idea of how we feel when we're falling in love, right? That's just a wonderful feeling. And we can get there consciously. I love that it says, when you tell the story of how you want your life to be, you will come closer and closer to the vicinity of appreciation. And when you reach it, it will pull you toward all things that you consider to be good in a very powerful way.
Mm.
I really have noticed that when people fall in love, they often have a bunch of other things in their life that are good things come to them at the same time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
By the way, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do wolves wolf it down?
I think so.
Do they?
But I don't know if it's Kate.
See, that suggests to me that wolves aren't enjoying their lives. I would think that the wolf would want to savor just as much as anybody else does.
Thank you for that. That's good. I think they enjoy their life.
Oh, that's good.
Most of the time, I think. I don't know. I don't know. I have to ask.
I've never interviewed a wolf. I couldn't tell you.
I haven't either, so I have no idea. Maybe they're just all bitter. I don't know.
Well, they're probably all upset. Oh yeah, they're blaming all the wolfing it down. They're blaming it on us. It's our fault. Oh yeah, sure.
Oh, all right. So conversely, let us talk about the difference between, let us say, gratitude and appreciation. Oh, this is good because I don't really think of those as being so different. Many people use the words interchangeably, but we do not feel the same vibrational essence in them at all. Because when you feel gratitude, often you're looking at a struggle that you've overcome. In other words, you're happy that you are still not in that struggle, but there is still some of that struggle vibration present. In other words, the difference between inspiration, which is being called to who you are, and motivation, which is trying to make yourself go somewhere, is a similar difference.
Yeah, I agree.
That's interesting. I just wrote an article about this.
Really?
Yeah, and I actually was thinking about it in the prior pages when we were talking about when Abraham says that it will pull you toward all things that you consider to be good. I was thinking about the difference between inspiration and motivation, because motivation to me is often that you're running from something.
Mm-hmm.
Like I gotta work hard and, finish this degree so that I can get out of this crappy job and go to a better one, right? It's like this, you're motivated. It's not that motivation's a bad thing.
No.
But inspiration is this thing you see out in front of you that's so beautiful that it's drawing you to it.
One's a carrot, one's a stick.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see what Abraham says. I'm interested now in hearing their take. So it says, but there's still some of that struggle vibration present. In other words, the difference between inspiration, which is being called to who you are, and motivation, which is trying to make yourself go somewhere, is a similar difference. Appreciation is that tuned in, tapped in, turned on feeling. Appreciation is vibrational alignment with who I have become. The state of appreciation is me being in sync with the whole of that which I am. Being in the state of appreciation is seeing whatever you are looking at through the eyes of Source. And when you're in that state of appreciation, you could walk down a crowded street with all kinds of things that a lot of other people would find reason to criticize or worry about, and you would not have access to them because your vibration of appreciation is picking out for you things of a different vibrational nature. A state of appreciation is a state of godliness. A state of appreciation is being who you really are. A state of appreciation is who you were the day you were born and who you will be the moment you die. And it would be, if we were standing in your physical shoes, our quest in every moment. Joseph Campbell used the word bliss, and we think it is equal. Follow your bliss. But sometimes you cannot get a whiff of bliss from where you are. So we say, if you're in despair, follow your revenge. It is downstream. If you are in revenge, follow your hatred. It is downstream. If you are in hatred, follow your anger. It is downstream. If you are in anger, follow your frustration. It is downstream. If you are in frustration, follow your hope. It is downstream. If you are in hope, now you are in the vicinity of appreciation. Once you get into the vibration of hope, now begin making lists of things that you feel good about and fill your notebooks full of them. Make lists of positive aspects. Make lists of things you love. Go to the restaurant and look for your favorite things and never complain about anything. Look for the thing that you like the best. Even if there was only one thing in all of it that you like, give it your undivided attention and use it as your excuse to be who you are. And as you use those things that shine bright and make you feel good as your excuse to give your attention and be who you are, you will tune to who you are, and the whole world will begin to transform before your eyes. It's not your job to transform the world for others, but it is your job to transform it for you. A state of appreciation is pure connection to Source, where there is no perception of lack.
Boy, there are two things in particular, a lot of things in there that are good, but two in particular that really jumped out at me. First, in that last paragraph, it is not your job to transform the world for others, but it is your job to transform it for you. Whoa, that for me is huge. That's a really big thing. And it's one that I have focused on quite a bit already, but I like the way they phrased it. It really brought home to me how important it is to just stop trying to fix things for others. You can't fix things for others. You really can't. I mean, you can be sympathetic. You can make yourself available to help, which is not the same thing as fixing things for them, but rather to be there to help them when they fix things. But you can't actually do any of the fixing for them. They have to do it.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important. And it's a point that a lot of people kind of blur. So if you're one of the blurrers, stop doing that. But the other thing was a couple paragraphs back, where it says Joseph Campbell used the word bliss, and we think it is equal to follow your bliss. The thing that is equal is appreciation.
Yeah.
Appreciation and bliss are equal. I never made that connection before. That's a new one for me. Appreciation and bliss are equal.
So that means we can have it right now.
Well, more than that, I was underestimating the feeling of appreciation.
I hear you.
Because there were many times I would say, oh, yeah, I appreciate that. But was I feeling bliss? No, which means I really wasn't there. I was partway there, but I wasn't there in modern parlance. I hadn't reached the total there. I mean, that means I got a little more work to do about appreciation, which is okay with me. I mean, that's a good thing to work on, but that's a real eye-opener for me.
We can continue to work on it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be thinking about that one for a while. Bliss equals appreciation. Appreciation equals bliss. Wow.
Yeah. It's that flood we were talking about.
Yeah. Well, now I can appreciate the flood part of it more. Now I get why the flood is such an important piece of appreciation. I certainly appreciate the time we spent on this, and I look forward to talking to you about it again tomorrow morning. How's that?
I'll be back tomorrow morning, and I'm looking forward to it too. And I'm looking forward to sinking into a flood of appreciation today, for sure.
Sounds great, and we hope that you'll join us next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.